So in Canton, Ohio, where the sport had its beginnings, the Professional Football Hall of Fame was born. A home for football history, where visitors are greeted by the legendary Jim Thorpe, whose flowing power and grace are captured in an eternal run for daylight.
Long before Olympic scandals had hashtags, headlines, or 24-hour media cycles, there was Jim Thorpe, a man so naturally gifted that even today, sports historians speak his name with a kind of reverence reserved for legends. At the 1912 Stockholm Games, Thorpe didn't just win, he dominated, taking gold in both the decathlon and the pentathlon. He wasn't just competing, he was redefining what an athlete could be, but Thorpe's greatness collided head-on with the rigid Victorian rules of amateurism, the old belief that professional athletes had no place in the Olympics. When someone discovered he had once earned a few dollars playing semi-pro baseball, that was enough to tear everything away. The IOC stripped him of both gold medals a year later. For decades, those medals sat in the shadows of paperwork and outdated ideals until 1982, nearly 30 years after Thorpe died, when the IOC finally restored his titles and returned replicas of his medals to his family. Thorpe's case wasn't just an early scandal, it became a warning about the fragility of greatness in a system that often fails to protect it.
Line on the road, Pantani is on the right, and Armstrong keeping on the pressure here. As we start to approach the line now, Pantani grits his teeth and accelerates, and over the line, Pantani lifts.
Then there's the case so famous it became bigger than sports itself. Lance Armstrong wasn't just a champion, he was the blueprint of superhuman endurance. A cancer survivor who clawed his way back from the brink, returned to cycling, and dominated the sport with a ferocity that made people believe anything was possible. He wasn't just winning races, he was becoming a global symbol of hope. By the time he reached the 2000 Sydney Olympics, he was already a living legend, and when he snagged bronze in the men's time trial, it felt like the universe was simply confirming what everyone already thought. This man was untouchable. But behind that invincible image was a reality so dark it reshaped how the world talks about cheating in sports. And when the truth finally cracked through the armor, it didn't just unravel a medal, it tore down an entire mythos built over nearly 2 decades. For years, whispers and accusations swirled around Armstrong. Former teammates talked, journalists dug, agencies questioned, but nothing stuck until it all did. In 2010, US federal prosecutors opened a formal investigation that put the entire cycling world on edge. And 2 years later, the United States Anti-Doping Agency dropped a bombshell, a 200-page report outlining in staggering detail what they called the most sophisticated, professionalized, and successful doping program the sport had ever seen. That report was so overwhelming the IOC had no choice but to act. In 2013, they stripped Armstrong of his Olympic bronze from Sydney, a symbolic moment that told the world his entire legacy was now under review. And then came the moment nobody ever thought they'd see. That same year, Armstrong sat down in an interview and publicly admitted everything. The lies, the substances, the system, the years of denial. In one confession, the hero narrative collapsed. His fall remains one of the steepest in sports history, a rise so inspiring and a fall so catastrophic that it still echoes today. A reminder that even the brightest triumphs can cast the darkest shadows, and that sometimes the most celebrated figures carry secrets heavy enough to break the myth entirely.
Marion Jones is out of prison. The disgraced American sprinter was released Friday morning from a halfway house in San Antonio. Jones served most of her 6-month sentence for lying to federal investigators about her use of performance-enhancing drugs.
Making these false statements to federal agents was an incredibly stupid thing for me to do, and I am responsible fully for my actions. I have no one to blame but myself for what I have done.
If Armstrong's case was shocking, Marion Jones's was heartbreaking. At the 2000 Sydney Games, she was more than a superstar. She was the face of American athletic dominance. A young mother, charismatic, humble in interviews, yet terrifyingly explosive on the track. When she lined up at the starting blocks, stadiums went silent. When she ran, people felt like they were watching history happen in real time. 5 medals in 1 Olympics, 3 golds and 2 bronzes. A feat so massive it felt like the world had just met its next sporting legend. She wasn't just winning races, she was rewriting the limits of what people thought the human body could do. Her smile lit up press rooms, kids collected her posters, brands couldn't sign her fast enough. She was on cereal boxes, magazine covers, billboards, the perfect champion at the perfect moment. But even at her peak, shadows trailed behind her. The whispers started early and never went away. Her then husband, shot putter CJ Hunter, tested positive for steroids in a huge scandal that threw suspicion onto everyone around him, especially Marion. Coaches whispered about her sudden strength gains. Former teammates hinted that something didn't add up. Investigators circled, reporters asked uncomfortable questions, and yet, through everything, she never failed a single drug test, nothing. And in a sport drowning in doping scandals, that spotless record became her armor. She stood in front of cameras year after year, denying every allegation with unwavering conviction, and the world believed her, because people wanted to believe her. They wanted one clean hero, one bright story untouched by the darkness spreading across track and field. But in the end, even the strongest armor cracks. In 2007, after years of scrutiny and unrelenting pressure, Marion Jones walked into a federal courthouse and finally told the truth. She admitted she had lied to federal investigators about her steroid use. It wasn't just a confession, it was the detonation of everything she had built. The words barely left her mouth before the shockwaves hit.
Jones is free but remains on probation. After years of denials, Jones admitted last October that she used a designer steroid called the Clear from September 2000 to July 2001. Jones was a star at the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, winning 3 gold and 2 bronze medals. She gave back all 5 medals before the International Olympic Committee officially wiped her name from the record books in December. Steve Karmazin, The Associated Press.
The IOC stripped all 5 of her Sydney medals. Her name vanished from the record books. Her achievements, the ones kids had memorized, the ones commentators replayed for years, were erased overnight. She wasn't just disqualified, she was wiped off the Olympic map entirely. And the punishment didn't stop with sports. For lying to investigators, Jones was sentenced to 6 months in federal prison. Watching an Olympic icon walk into a correctional facility, wearing a plain uniform instead of a USA jersey, became one of the most surreal images in modern sports history. It was a fall so steep, so emotionally devastating that even people who never followed track and field felt the impact. When she was released, Jones tried to rebuild her life. She apologized. She spoke publicly about pressure and the cost of chasing perfection. She attempted a brief comeback in professional basketball. She became an advocate for honesty and second chances. But no matter how she tried to move forward, the shadow of Sydney never fully left her. Marion Jones's scandal still hangs over the Olympics like a haunting reminder of how fragile greatness can be. It's not just a story about doping. It's a story about human vulnerability, about ambition pushed past its breaking point, about a woman celebrated on the world stage who carried a secret heavy enough to collapse everything she touched. A rise so electrifying, a fall so emotionally devastating that it remains one of the most tragic chapters in Olympic history.
I think that even makes it more effective. And then, going back and forth with drills and then something fast or, whether it be on the rack or not, I think there's carryover there.
Fast forward 60 years, and another American found himself caught in a very different kind of controversy. Rick Dumont was only 16 years old when he won the gold in the 400-meter freestyle at the 1972 Munich Olympics. A teenager, a prodigy, standing on top of the world. But what followed felt almost cruel. After the race, Dumont tested positive for ephedrine, a banned substance found in his asthma medication. And here's where the tragedy unfolds. He had declared the medication, and the US medical team allowed him to use it. They simply failed to clear it with the IOC. Dumont wasn't doping, he wasn't cheating, he was breathing, but the rules didn't care. The IOC stripped his medal, barred him from competing in the rest of the games, and ended one of the most promising Olympic storylines of that era. Dumont fought for decades to have his medal restored, but the ruling never changed. His story stands as one of the Olympics' harshest what-ifs, where the failure wasn't in the athlete, but in the system that was supposed to protect him.